Welcome to the Work Trends podcast from Talent Culture. I'm your host, Megan Mbiro. Every week, I interview interesting people who are reimagining work. And be sure to check out our Work Trends Twitter chat events calendar located at talentculture.com on the podcast page. Welcome to another episode of the Talent Culture Work Trends podcast. I'm your host, Megan Mbiro, and today we are diving into the essential skills of great management. A survey of over 1,000 Americans by Zeti found that the top qualities of a manager were honesty, positivity, trustworthiness, supportiveness, and decision-making skills. Another survey by Microsoft revealed that an authentic, empathetic manager leads to higher job satisfaction, engagement, feelings of belonging, and intent to stay at the company. For example, 88% of employees with an authentic manager feel a sense of belonging compared to 63% without one. Today, we answer this question. How can one be a manager that everyone wants to work for? Our guest, Ron Ritchie, will help point us to the answers. Ron is the founder and CEO of the Culture Platform, the foremost data platform to measure, manage, and magnify organizational culture. With over 2 decades of experience leading large teams, Ron is an expert voice on management best practices. He previously held senior leadership roles at Cisco, where he managed more than 5,000 employees. Ron is passionate about helping managers succeed in what he calls the post-everything era. Ron, it's so great to have you joining me today.
Oh, it's a thrill to be here. Thanks for having me. Look forward to the discussion.
Oh, absolutely. If you're out there in the Work Trends community, you may know that Ron Ritchie is a good friend of Talent Culture, and we are jazzed that he's here. So I'm just going to dive right in. Ron, you have 20 plus years in senior leadership at Cisco. What did you learn about what it takes to be a successful manager?
Oh, what a great question. I can tell you this. I knew that I was only as good as the people on my team. And I think that's sort of the most fundamental insight to being a manager, is to know that your people really are what makes up your team. And so I learned, how do I really become a great manager to attract great people? And if I learned anything, it's that if you want to have the best people on your team, you have to be really, really good at setting clear expectations to your people, because their people on your team want to know about their growth and development opportunities and whether a role on your team is going to get them somewhere. And to that end, it's really critical to be great at being an expectation setter. And Megan, I think you know this already, but the manager job is probably the toughest job in any organization. You sit between leadership expectations and then your people's expectations, and every individual on the team has their own view of what success looks like for themselves. And that's why setting expectations is what I learned is the most important thing you need to be good at as a manager. And if you're good at that and you have a style for that and create a reputation for that, you're going to attract the best people. And if you have the best people, you're going to have the best team.
20 plus years at Cisco. I mean, what was that moment for you, really briefly, where you said, this is what I need to do and take it to another level?
I got feedback once where early in my career at Cisco, someone said to me, Ron, I love working for you, but you're what I call a line of sight manager. And it was really where someone said to me, you give instructions to the most recent person you talk to. And, Megan, a lot of young managers, they get excited about the last person they talk to, but line of sight management is not a great way to manage. And I started asking questions, well, what's the right way to manage? And really trying to work at the best company at the world, trying to be the best manager at the best company in the world. I think I really learned that if you ask people, what do I need to do to help you be a better manager? You'll learn that what they really care about is that our people want to get ahead. And they want to work for managers who really understand that setting great expectations about career opportunities is what they want. And so for me, my insight was when somebody whacked me over the head and said, hey, you need to get better.
Well, and you responded with asking the question why. And I've known you for, a decade now. And honestly, you're still asking why. So I love that about you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Let's start with a loaded question here, Ron. What are some reasons why so many managers fail at management?
Oh, gosh, what a great question. Because it really speaks to, what's happening today in the relationship between employees and their companies. And like I said, managers sit between, leadership and the folks doing the work. And so it's tough to be a manager. And I think managers, when they fail, I think it's really for two reasons. One, it's hard to be a manager because managing involves human-to-human communications. And it takes a lot of courage to be a manager. You have to tell people the truth sometimes. Now, I know, Megan, you've typically finished top 10% in your teams, but not everybody does. And having the courage to tell people the truth is hard. Having the courage to follow through on your word is hard. Holding people accountable is hard. So I think the first reason why folks fail is that they really don't understand how hard it is and how important it is to develop a disciplined style so that you can be good at the hard things. But I also think companies are part of the reason why managers fail, because companies are often very inconsistent in the way they act and behave. I know you've seen this in your career where orgs change their mind every once in a while, start a project, then stop it, launch an initiative, not fund it, not being consistent in the way they measure things, not having a calendared process to how we hold people accountable. So I really think failure as a manager is sort of, I'll look at it through the lens of optimism. If you want to be a great manager, develop your style so that you can tell people the truth, be good at following through, be able to hold people accountable, but also challenge your company to do better, to be more consistent in the way that they operate so that you can actually do what you need to do for your people, which is to help them see the future opportunities on your team.
Let's take a break now to hear what our advertiser LearnSoft is saying about learning and talent management platforms. As your organization changes and grows, trying to keep your staff educated and fully compliant can be a real pain in the LMS. LearnSoft is the ultimate learning management and talent management platform designed to revolutionize training and development in complex and highly regulated environments. With LearnSoft, you can manage, deliver, track, and lead your training initiatives while ensuring compliance and driving employee growth. Visit learnsoft.com to discover how we can deliver a new, flexible learning management system in just 90 days. Now back to the podcast and our guest, Ron Ritchie. For those of you out there taking notes at home, you might recall, if we go back long enough, I actually started as a servant leadership blogger on Forbes. And, the rest is history, of course. But Ron, when companies call leaders servant leaders, what does that mean? And how does somebody know if they're doing what a servant leader is supposed to do?
I think it's so amazing that you started that way, because the whole talent culture is really about serving, to create a better world there. So I'm not surprised. I think that it's important when you look at, I don't want to sort of confuse the label with what it really means. So to me, I'm going to focus on sort of what it means. It's a style of managing people, but it's only a style. And I really want to encourage everybody has to develop their own way of being a manager, because that's what's really going to attract the best people. But having said that, servant leaders really are about walking in the shoes of their employees. And that's really super important, I think, if you're going to be a leader, is to really know what the job role is that an employee on your team or an individual contributor has, and how that job role is going to propel them to reach their dreams. And if you really, really, really want to be a servant leader, you need to treat your employees the same way you would customers, Megan. Walk in their shoes and find out what they really care about. And when you ask that question, people are going to give you the same consistent three answers over and over again. I care about my career growth, I care about my development, and I care about whether my managers can help me do number one and number two.
And if you're out there and you're managing teams, I feel for you, because I feel like often managers are left behind. We're not even talking about managers, Ron. We're talking about employees and leaders. And so I'm so glad that you have something here, and it's called the Manager's Toolbox. What can we find in this kit?
I think that the way the world's evolved in the last few decades is that we have emphasized leadership, and we've overinvested in employee engagement, in my view, and what we have underinvested in manager training and development. So I see myself in that sort of servant leader frame where I've tried to ask questions about what employees really care about. What do they want to be happy at a job and love it? And it is about understanding how to set great expectations for the people on your team about how you can create create that growth and development path for your team. And so for me, the toolbox that I think is super important is to create a human-to-human communication process in your organization. Don't over-invest on technology to help manage your people. Over-invest in helping to really enable human-to-human communication. So what does that really mean, Megan? I think it means really to have at least three things that you do well in your organization. One, is it easy for people to align company priorities to a job role? Can I look at my job and have a clear line of sight to what is a priority in the company so that I know my job matters to the success of the organization I'm in? Second, that toolbox should help managers figure out how a job role can measure something that they're doing so that people can communicate with facts. If you can help empower your people to communicate with facts, then you have really done your job as a manager. And the third thing in this toolbox is to make sure you measure things all in a consistent way so there's no ambiguity. Help people set priorities, help people measure things, and be consistent in the way you do that. All that is a process, Megan. You can't really replace that human-to-human communication with technology. It's about being consistent in the way you do that across an organization.
Are you listening to this sage, everyone? That's unbelievable and so important when you say human to human, because that's really, we have all this great technology, but that's what it's all about. That's why we're here. And, speaking of, let's kind of fast forward into the now. Today, people gravitate to jobs that offer training and development opportunities. It's a big lure. Knowing this, what would keep companies from eliminating or downgrading a program like this? And beyond this, how do you keep it enduring?
It's important for somebody to be the voice of the manager, and I'm going to take that role in the market because I think that the underinvestment in helping managers do their job well has been, to me, that's the root cause to why employees are so unhappy in the data that we see in companies. So I'm going to say something that I think is hopefully challenging to the world. If we are in the era of efficiency, Megan, that means there's not going to be more money to invest in training and development. We have to stop doing something to do something better. And in my best way to answer your question is, we've spent 20 years over investing in employee engagement, and it hasn't gotten us anywhere. And in my view, we need to shift some of the dollars out of employee engagement and try to put that into how do we help improve what managers do to better set expectations with employees so their employees fall in love with their job roles and kick ass in their job role in the company. And that is about choices, and we have to choose to decide the manager role is more important. This is why leadership is hard. You have to make choices and make trade-offs. And in my view, we have to make the trade-off to invest in the manager. It's 20 years overdue.
Oh my gosh. Woo! You are really on a roll today, and you're speaking some truth, because I have to say, if you're wondering how I feel about what Ron is saying right now, I actually agree with you. I mean, it's time. Everybody's got to do the wake up on the fact that this is about managers. End of story. So, let's for a moment think about the now and the future. If somebody is new to management and they're thinking, what is my future going to be in my career? What are some tips and advice they should follow for all of those people, Ron, who are considering it?
So first of all, let me just say that being a manager is the best job in a company. One of the greatest expressions I heard once was that strategy is for amateurs, execution is for generals. And that's what managers do. They're the generals of a corporation or an organization. They're the people who get things done. So I hope anyone listening to this is excited about the prospects of being a manager. And so what I would say is, if you want to be a great manager, learn to ask 3 questions. When you're with your people, question number 1, what do you think your strengths are? It's so important for people to know what they're good at so that they can be in a job role that plays to their strengths. So the first question is that ask your people, what are your strengths? Second question, when you're with your people, are you in a job role that plays to your strengths? If you're in a job role that doesn't play to your strengths, you need to run as fast as you can out of that job into one that does. And then the third question you need to ask is, what can I do better as a manager? If you ask those questions, what do you think your strengths are? Are you in a job role that plays to your strengths? And what can I do better as a manager? What you hear will be what you need to do to be a great manager.
Did you hear that? Do. I mean, this is about executing. This is about doing. It's not about talking about it. It really isn't. This is about putting all of this into action. So I love that those are juicy tips. Awesome stuff. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Also, don't be afraid to be measured and to look at some system where you get feedback from your team on how you're doing. That's why I started the Culture Platform, was to create a measurement platform to help managers get better at different aspects of being a manager, whether you're setting expectations or want to try to be more curious. So feedback is really part of being a good manager. One of the best pieces of advice I once got as a manager was get perspective. And so having some kind of perspective from your team about what you can do to do better and having that be data driven is just all what you need to do to try to figure out how you basically do what you need to do, which is to help people be successful.
Well, I know you are deep into the research. So having said that, where do you see the future of our younger generations settling into leadership roles? And do you foresee them embracing leadership responsibilities differently than, say, people exiting the workforce?
I love questions about the future because understanding, what we meant, when you and I were talking about the post-everything era. Well, the post-everything era is about the future and where are we going? And one of the aspects of the post-everything era is we're in the post-boomer generation. We're really now in a different set of generations are going to be taking over the leadership mantles. And I think as we look at that, I'm absolutely certain about one thing that will be true. Human-to-human communication is the key to setting great expectations and attracting great employees. So I know that much is true, and I don't think anything is going to change around that into the future, even as we look at the new technologies coming on board. I really, really hope, Megan, that we don't make the same mistake with AI as we did with employee engagement, thinking somehow a technology can replace the human-to-human communications.
Oh, gosh.
That
would not be good.
It would not. And I think that what we need to do is to focus on how AI can be helpful. Humans are notoriously bad at writing things down, I think, as you know, and AI would be a great fit for that. AI would help drive consistent processes, but in the end, it'll help managers get better at what they're doing. And I think no matter what generation you're from, you may use technology to help you do your job, but your job really is about connecting with people, listening to people, communicating with people, and helping them see the opportunities on your team. And when people see the opportunities on your team and feel that you're engaged as a manager, that's what the research shows about why people love where they work. Kind of in the end, every manager has to go through this growth phase to figure out their style, because there is no greater truth than you're only as good as the people on your team.
Well, in this manager's toolbox that you talked about, just having those actionable tips, those takeaways, has been so helpful today. Is there anything else you want to share with us? I mean, you've got so much excitement going on there at the Culture platform.
Well, we're coming to markets in September with a series of new tools on our platform to help make it easier for managers to get feedback on themselves. And they're really all in service to helping to address this human-to-human communication, goals we need to have to being great at setting expectations. I think we're entering this new post-everything era with an opportunity to change the workplace. And I think that what you're doing here at Talent Culture, really being a place where ideas can help, really challenge the status quo and to really invent what the future can hold. I think companies are going to be more and more about the quality of their talent. And if we're going to have great talent, we have to have great managers. And so I hope folks will take a look at the Culture platform. Drop me an email at ron@ronritchie.com if you want to give it a spin. And I really appreciate the chance to talk to you about the future of talent here with you, Megan.
Hey, Ron, thanks for keeping it real and for walking the talk.
There is no other way if you want to be a manager. Walking the talk is the best way to sum up, I think, everything that we said.
Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. You can hear all of our Work Trends podcasts on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and beyond. And be sure to subscribe so you can listen on the go and stay up to date on all the latest news you need. Catch up with you next time, and I hope today's information made you wiser, happier, and more informed.